Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand and tried to be brave. She remembered what her father always told her: if you're ever lost, find a police officer or a security guard. Guard Thompson wasn't exactly a police officer, but his uniform meant he was supposed to help people, right? She started walking toward him, but before she could get close she felt a hand on her shoulder. "Hey there, little girl," said a gruff voice behind her. "You look lost." Emma turned around to see the same man in the dark hoodie who had taken her mother's purse. Up close he looked even more frightening. His face was unshaven, his clothes were dirty, and he smelled like cigarettes. But his voice was trying to sound friendly. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers," Emma said quietly, taking a step backward. "Oh, but I'm not a stranger," the man said with a fake smile. "I saw you with your mummy just a few minutes ago. She sent me to find you." Emma's heart jumped with hope for just a second, but then something felt wrong. Why would her mother send this scary man instead of coming herself? And why did he have her mother's purse hanging from his shoulder? "Where is my mummy?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. "She's waiting for you outside the gates," the man lied smoothly. "She had to go take care of something, but she asked me to bring you to her. Come on, let's go." He reached out to take Emma's hand, but she pulled away. Every instinct in her small body was telling her that this was wrong. Her parents had taught her about stranger danger, and this man definitely felt dangerous. "I want to see my mummy first," Emma said, backing away further. The man's fake smile faded slightly. "Look, kid, we don't have time for games. Your mother is worried sick about you. She needs you to come with me right now." But Emma was already shaking her head. She glanced over at Guard Thompson, who was still standing at attention about 30 feet away. He was facing forward, focused on his duty, but she wished desperately that he would look in her direction. "I don't believe you," Emma said, surprising herself with her own courage. The man's expression hardened completely. "Listen, little girl, you're coming with me, whether you like it or not." He stepped closer, and Emma could see anger flashing in his eyes. Emma's mind raced. She needed help, but she was too far away from Guard Thompson to run to him before this man could catch her. The crowd around them was thick, and most adults were too busy enjoying the festival to notice a little girl in trouble. Then she remembered something from a safety video they had watched at school. The teacher had said that if you're ever in danger and need help, sometimes you have to be creative about getting someone's attention. Emma had an idea, but she wasn't sure if it would work. She would have to be very careful and very brave. The man was reaching for her arm when Emma suddenly pretended to trip and fall to the ground. As she fell, she let out a loud cry that sounded like she was hurt. Several people nearby turned to look, including, she hoped, Guard Thompson. But when she looked up from the ground, the man was standing over her with a very angry expression, and she realized her plan might have just made things much worse. "Get up," the man hissed quietly, his voice full of threat. "Stop making a scene or you'll be sorry." Emma's heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. She could see that a few people had noticed her fall, but they seemed to think it was just an accident. They were already turning back to their own conversations and activities, but when she looked toward the palace entrance, her heart leaped with hope. Guard Thompson had turned slightly in her direction. His trained eyes had caught the disturbance, and now he was watching carefully, even though he remained at his post. Emma knew she had one chance to communicate that she was in real danger. But how could she let him know without the scary man realizing what she was doing? She thought back to a favorite movie about spies and secret agents. In the film, the characters used special hand signals to communicate when they couldn't speak. Emma had practiced some of these signals with her friends at school, just for fun. The man bent down and grabbed her arm, pulling her to her feet. "I said, get up. We're leaving now." As he yanked her upward, Emma caught Guard Thompson's eye and did something that could have gotten her in even more trouble. She placed her hand flat against her chest and then pointed discreetly toward the man holding her arm. It was a signal she remembered from the spy movie. It meant, "Help me." Then, hoping the guard would understand, she mouthed the word "help" while pointing at the man again. Guard Thompson's entire posture changed. Years of military training had taught him to read body language and recognize distress signals. Even though he had never seen that exact hand signal before, the little girl's terrified expression and desperate gestures told him everything he needed to know. For a moment he hesitated. Royal guards were strictly forbidden from leaving their posts without permission. Breaking protocol could cost him his job, and he had worked hard to earn his position. But as he watched the frightened child being dragged away by a man who was clearly not her parent, his duty as a protector overrode everything else. "Stop right there." Guard Thompson's commanding voice cut through the festival noise like a knife. The man in the hoodie froze. Emma felt his grip on her arm tighten painfully, but she also felt a surge of hope. The guard had understood her signal. "What's the problem, officer?" the man called back, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. Guard Thompson was already moving toward them, his hand resting on his radio. "I need to speak with you, sir. Please stay where you are." The man looked around frantically. The crowd was starting to notice the commotion, and more people were turning to stare. He realized that running would only make him look more suspicious, but staying meant facing questions he couldn't answer. "This is my daughter," he said loudly, hoping the lie would be believable. "She's just upset because she wanted to stay longer at the festival." But Guard Thompson was close enough now to see Emma's terrified face and the way the man was gripping her arm. He had also noticed something else that made his blood run cold. The woman's purse hanging from the man's shoulder looked expensive and out of place with his shabby appearance.
"What's your name, sweetheart?"
Guard Thompson asked Emma gently, ignoring the man completely. Emma opened her mouth to answer, but the man squeezed her arm so hard she gasped in pain instead. And that was when Guard Thompson knew for certain that he was about to break every rule in the book, and that a little girl's life might depend on it. "Let go of her arm," Guard Thompson ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone trained to handle dangerous situations. The man's eyes darted around the courtyard like a trapped animal. More people were stopping to watch the confrontation, and he could see other guards beginning to take notice of the disturbance. "I told you she's my daughter," he insisted, but his voice was getting higher and more panicked. "Then you won't mind if I call her parents to confirm that," Guard Thompson said, pulling out his radio. "What's your name, sir? And what's the little girl's full name?" Emma watched as the man's face went from angry to desperate. She could feel his hand shaking as he gripped her arm, and she knew he was about to do something bad. "Emma," a familiar voice suddenly called out from across the courtyard. Everyone turned to see Sarah pushing through the crowd, her face streaked with tears and panic. She had been searching frantically for her daughter ever since the purse-snatching incident, asking every guard and festival worker she could find for help. "Mummy!" Emma cried out, and the relief in her voice was unmistakable. The man's lie crumbled instantly. It was obvious to everyone watching that Sarah was Emma's real mother, and that the man in the hoodie was a complete stranger. "That's my purse," Sarah gasped, pointing at the bag hanging from the man's shoulder. "You're the one who stole it." Guard Thompson stepped forward immediately. "Sir, I need you to release the child and remain calm." But the man had other plans. In one quick motion, he shoved Emma hard toward the guard and took off running toward the palace gardens. Emma stumbled but didn't fall, and Guard Thompson caught her, steady her. "Are you hurt?" he asked quickly. "I'm okay," Emma whispered, though her arm ached where the man had been gripping it. Guard Thompson looked at the radio in his hand, then at Emma's frightened face, then at the man who was already disappearing into the crowd of festival goers. According to protocol, he should call for backup and wait for instructions. He should not abandon his post. He should not engage in pursuit of a suspect. But sometimes, protocol had to take a back seat to doing the right thing. "Stay with your mother," he told Emma firmly, then took off running after the man. The crowd parted as the red-uniformed guard sprinted through the courtyard, his heavy boots pounding against the cobblestones. People pointed and shouted directions, calling out which way the man had gone. "He went toward the rose garden," someone yelled. "I saw him jump over the fence," called another voice. Guard Thompson's radio crackled to life as his supervisor's voice came through. "Thompson, report your position immediately." But Thompson was already vaulting over a decorative fence, landing hard on the other side and continuing his pursuit. He could see the man in the hoodie about 50 yards ahead, stumbling through the carefully maintained flower beds. The man looked back and saw the guard gaining on him. In desperation, he threw Sarah's purse to the ground and tried to run faster, but his poor physical condition was working against him. Guard Thompson was younger, fitter, and highly motivated. Within another minute, he had tackled the man to the ground near a fountain in the center of the garden. "You're under arrest," Thompson panted, pulling out his handcuffs. But as he secured the suspect, he could hear his radio buzzing with increasingly urgent messages from his commanding officer. He had broken protocol in the most dramatic way possible, and there would definitely be consequences. Still, as he looked at the recovered purse lying in the flowers nearby, he knew he had made the right choice. 20 minutes later, Guard Thompson stood at attention in the palace security office, still breathing heavily from the chase. His commanding officer, Captain Williams, paced back and forth behind a large wooden desk, his face red with anger. "Do you have any idea what you've done, Thompson?" Captain Williams demanded. "You abandoned your post during a royal event. You engaged in pursuit without authorization. You completely ignored direct orders from dispatch." "Yes, sir," Thompson replied, staring straight ahead. "This is grounds for immediate dismissal," the captain continued. "The Royal Guard operates on discipline and following orders. We cannot have guards running off whenever they feel like playing hero." Thompson remained silent, though inside he was wondering if he would still have a job by the end of the day. He had known the risks when he decided to break protocol, but seeing Emma's terrified face had made the choice easy. "However," Captain Williams said, pausing in his pacing, "there are some factors we need to consider." The office door opened, and Sarah walked in with Emma close beside her. The little girl's eyes were still red from crying, but she looked much calmer now that she was safe with her mother. "Sir," Sarah said, addressing the captain, "I wanted to thank Guard Thompson personally. If he hadn't acted when he did, I don't know what might have happened to my daughter." Captain Williams looked down at Emma, who was partially hiding behind her mother's legs. "Young lady, can you tell me what happened out there?" Emma looked up at Guard Thompson, then back at the captain. In a small but clear voice, she said, "The bad man grabbed me and said he was going to take me away. I was really scared, and I didn't know what to do. So I made a signal to Guard Thompson, and he saved me." "What kind of signal?" the captain asked, his expression softening slightly. Emma demonstrated the hand gesture she had used, placing her hand on her chest and pointing. "It's from a movie I saw about spies. I hoped he would understand that I needed help." Captain Williams looked at Guard Thompson with new interest. "You recognize this as a distress signal?" "Not exactly, sir," Thompson admitted, but her body language and facial expression made it clear she was in danger. The man was gripping her arm tightly, had a stolen purse, and was clearly trying to remove her from the area against her will. The captain nodded slowly. "And you made a split-second decision to act?" "Yes, sir. I realize I broke protocol and I'm prepared to accept the consequences." Before the captain could respond, there was another knock on the door. A senior palace official entered, followed by Emma's father, who had just arrived after hearing about the incident. "Dr. Mitchell," the official said, addressing Emma's father, "we understand your daughter was involved in a security incident today." Emma ran to her father and hugged him tightly. "Daddy, the scary man tried to take me, but Guard Thompson stopped him." Dr. Mitchell looked at Guard Thompson with immense gratitude. "Thank you," he said simply, but the emotion in his voice spoke volumes. The palace official cleared his throat. "Captain Williams, I've been briefed on the situation. While we cannot overlook the breach of protocol, it appears Guard Thompson's actions prevented a potential kidnapping. The suspect has been dove over to local police and is facing multiple charges." Captain Williams straightened his shoulders. "What are your instructions, sir?" "Guard Thompson will receive a formal reprimand for breaking protocol," the official stated. "However, he will also receive a commendation for exceptional service and quick thinking in protecting a civilian." Thompson blinked in surprise. He had expected to be fired, not commended. Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, I want to thank Guard Thompson properly." Dr. Mitchell smiled and lifted his daughter up so she could look the guard in the eye. "What do you want to say, sweetheart?" But what Emma did next surprised everyone in the room and would soon make headlines around the world. Emma looked directly at Guard Thompson and said, "I want to teach you the real signal." Everyone in the room looked puzzled. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" her father asked. "The signal I used wasn't right," Emma explained seriously. I just made it up from a movie. But my teacher taught us a real signal that kids can use when they're in trouble and need help. She demonstrated by tucking her thumb into her palm and then folding her fingers over it, making what looked like a simple fist. This is the real signal for help. If you hold up your hand like this, it means you're in danger and need someone to call for help. Guard Thompson studied the gesture carefully. Where did you learn this? At school, Emma said proudly. Our teacher said it's important because sometimes kids can't say out loud that they need help, especially if someone bad is watching them. So they can make this signal and adults who know about it can help them. Sarah looked amazed. I had no idea you learned that at school. It's part of a new safety program, Dr. Mitchell explained to the adults in the room. They're teaching children non-verbal ways to communicate distress, especially in situations where they might not be able to speak freely. Captain Williams leaned forward with interest. This could be valuable training for all our guards. Many of our events involve large crowds and families with children. The palace official nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps we should consider implementing this as part of our security protocols. Emma wasn't finished with her lesson. There's something else too, she said, looking around at all the adults. My teacher said that if a grown-up tries to take you somewhere and you don't want to go, you should never go quietly. You should make noise and try to get attention, even if the person says they'll hurt you if you don't cooperate. That's very smart advice, Guard Thompson said, impressed by the 8-year-old's knowledge. I was scared to make noise because the barman seemed really angry, Emma admitted, but I remembered that sometimes you have to be brave even when you're scared. Sarah hugged her daughter tightly. You were incredibly brave today. The palace official stepped forward. Young lady, would you be willing to help us teach other security personnel about these safety signals? We could arrange for you and your teacher to visit and give a presentation. Emma's eyes lit up with excitement. Really? I could help teach the guards. If your parents agree. Yes, the official smiled. But Captain Williams had another idea brewing. Actually, I think there's something even more important we should consider here. He turned to address the room formally. Today, an 8-year-old child showed more situational awareness and problem-solving skills than some trained security professionals. She recognized a dangerous situation, attempted to signal for help, and remained calm under pressure. The captain looked directly at Emma. Young lady, I would like to recommend you for an honorary junior guard position. It would mean you could visit the palace regularly, help with safety training, and be recognized as an official friend of the Royal Guard. Emma gasped with delight, but then her expression became serious. Does that mean I could help other kids if they're in trouble too? That's exactly what it means, Captain Williams confirmed. Guard Thompson smiled for the first time since the incident began. Not only had he kept his job, but he had also learned something valuable from the very child he had rescued. What none of them realized was that Emma's story was about to spread far beyond the palace walls, inspiring a new approach to child safety that would save lives around the world. 3 months later, Guard Thompson stood in the same courtyard where the incident had occurred, but everything was different now. Today, the palace was hosting the first annual Child Safety Awareness Day, and Emma was the guest of honor. She wore a special junior guard uniform that had been tailored just for her, complete with a small badge that read Honorary Safety Ambassador. Her parents watched proudly from the audience as she stood on a small stage, addressing a crowd of children, parents and security professionals from around the country. Remember, Emma said into the microphone, her voice much more confident than it had been 3 months ago. The hand signal is only part of staying safe. The most important thing is to trust your feelings. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. She demonstrated the distress signal again, thumb tucked into palm, fingers folded over, and the crowd of children practiced it along with her. But you also need to remember that making the signal is just the first step. You still need to try to get to a safe place, or a safe person. Guard Thompson, now promoted to Senior Guard Thompson, watched from the side of the stage. The incident had changed his life in ways he never could have imagined. He had become the lead instructor for the new Child Safety Recognitions program, training security personnel across the country to identify and respond to distress signals from children. Adults, Emma continued, turning to address the grown-ups in the audience. You need to pay attention. Kids might not always be able to tell you when they're scared or in trouble, that they will try to show you if you're watching. Sarah wiped away a tear as she watched her daughter speaking confidently to hundreds of people. The little girl who had been so frightened just a few months ago had transformed into a powerful advocate for child safety. The program Emma had inspired was already showing results. In the past 3 months, the distress signal had been used successfully in dozens of situations across the country. Children had used it to alert teachers about bullying, to signal distress during family visits with estranged relatives, and even to communicate with store clerks when they felt unsafe. Dr. Mitchell had worked with Emma's school to develop a comprehensive curriculum that was now being implemented in schools nationwide. The program didn't just teach the hand signal, it taught children how to recognize dangerous situations, how to trust their instincts, and how to seek help effectively. "Now I want to introduce someone very special," Emma announced. "This is Senior Guard Thompson. He's the one who saved me that day, and he's also the person who listened when I was trying to ask for help." Thompson stepped forward and took the microphone. "Thank you, Emma, but I want everyone here to understand something important. Emma saved herself that day. She recognized danger, she stayed calm, she found a way to communicate her need for help, and she was brave enough to trust a stranger when she needed to." He looked down at Emma, who beamed with pride. "I just happened to be paying attention." And that's the lesson for all the adults here today. We need to pay attention. We need to take children seriously when they try to tell us something is wrong, and we need to act quickly when a child needs our help. The crowd erupted in applause, and Emma stepped back to the microphone for her closing remarks. "Before I finish, I want to say something to all the kids here today," she said, her voice growing stronger. "If you're ever scared or in trouble, don't give up. Keep trying to get help. Make noise if you can. Use the signal we learned today, but most importantly, remember that there are good people in the world who will help you if they know you need it." She paused and looked directly at Guard Thompson. "Sometimes those good people are wearing uniforms, and sometimes they're just regular people. But they're out there, and they're watching for you." As the ceremony concluded and families began to disperse, Emma walked over to Guard Thompson. Despite all the attention and accolades, she was still fundamentally the same 8-year-old girl who loved spending time with her parents and playing with her friends. "Guard Thompson," she said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, Emma. What's on your mind?" "Do you think we really made a difference? Do you think other kids will be safer because of what happened to us?" Thompson knelt down so he could look Emma in the eye. "I know we made a difference. Do you want to know how I know?" Emma nodded eagerly. "Because last week a little boy in another city used your signal to get help when a stranger approached him at a playground. The security guard saw the signal, recognized it, and called the police. The boy got home safely to his family." Emma's eyes widened with wonder and pride. "And yesterday," Thompson continued, "a girl about your age used the signal to tell her teacher that someone at home was hurting her. Because the teacher knew what the signal meant, that little girl is now in a safe place and getting the help she needs." Emma felt a warm feeling spread through her chest. She had learned that being scared didn't make you weak. It made you human. And being brave didn't mean you weren't scared. It meant you did the right thing even when you were afraid. "Thank you for listening to me that day," Emma said softly. "Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help," Thompson replied. As Emma rejoined her parents and they walked toward the palace gates, Guard Thompson returned to his post. But now, instead of just watching for security threats, he found himself paying special attention to the children in every crowd, always ready to recognize a small hand signal that might mean the difference between safety and danger. The little girl's courage had broken more than just protocol that day. It had broken down barriers between adults and children, creating a new understanding of how communities could work together to keep everyone safe. And somewhere in the crowd, another child noticed how carefully the guard was watching, how ready he was to help, and felt just a little bit safer knowing that someone was paying attention.